Regardless of your voting history, understanding the fiscal and economic issues on your ballot can be daunting. And while national elections get the most media attention, measures on local and state ballots can actually be more impactful on your everyday life. So, let's dive in to understand what local and state governments spend money on and how you can educate yourself and inspire others to vote in elections on every level. First, let's help define what fiscal policy is. Fiscal policy is the use of government spending and tax policies to reach economic and social goals. Simply put, it's the rules around what the government can charge in taxes and then what they can spend that money on. Why does it matter? Because we all pay taxes and we all use public services. Regardless of the issues you care most about, education, the environment, social justice, the elimination of poverty, fiscal policy affects it all. So, what fiscal issues are controlled by local and state governments? Like the federal government, local and state governments also tax citizens through income taxes, sales taxes, property tax, and other fees. They then use that money to fund schools, public health and hospitals, roads and infrastructure, and public safety. For example, state and local governments determine budgets for public schools' instructional needs, student services, teacher salaries, and extracurriculars like arts and sports. And while education budgets are often set at the state level, it's often local governments that decide how the budget is allocated. Remember, the people who make decisions regarding taxes and government spending are on your ballot. This is why your vote matters at all levels. At the state level, we choose our governor, the state treasurer, comptroller or comptroller, as well as senators, representatives, or assembly members. On the local level, you have county supervisors and commissioners, city council members, mayors, school boards, and township board members. It's also important to know that in addition to candidates, you can also vote for measures that propose changes to state and local law. These measures might be called initiatives, propositions, or referendums, and they're a form of direct democracy where your vote helps approve or veto legislation. They can impact who pays what in taxes and what that money goes to. State and local ballot measures can have a big impact on fiscal policy. Most locally elected officials cannot levy taxes. If they want to raise taxes or change the way taxes are used, they often have to do it through a ballot measure. In other words, they need your approval, the voter. For example, if you live in an area where single-use plastic bags are no longer available at checkout counters, that's likely because of a ballot measure. In 2016, voters in California approved Prop 67, prohibiting grocery stores from providing single-use plastic bags and mandating the use of recyclable bags for 10 cents each. The bag tax funds are used to cover the environmental cost of non-reusable bags and to educate customers on recycling. Ballot measures can have an impact on government debt, especially if the measure is funded by a government bond. Bonds are a special type of ballot measure and are typically used to finance public projects related to education and infrastructure. There are generally two types of bonds: revenue bonds and general obligation bonds. Revenue bonds have a built-in way for paying for the project, such as tolls to cross a newly built bridge. General obligation bonds are a way for state and local governments to get money for a project without a specifically identified revenue stream to pay for the project. This means that general obligation bonds are considered public debt. But don't panic. Not all public debt is a bad thing. Bond measures typically finance large public projects, such as roads and building construction, school funding, or environmental conservation. They can be necessary investments that will result in future economic gains. So, we've learned what fiscal policy is, the role of state and local governments, and what might be on your ballot. The next step is to learn about the upcoming elections in your city, county, township, and state. In the description below, you can find our Voter's Guide to Local Fiscal Issues, where you can learn more details about elected officials and ballot measures, as well as find resources to know exactly what's on the ballot in your community. Remember, elections happen all year round, not just on the first Tuesday of November. So take a few minutes today to make a plan. Set reminders for yourself at least a month ahead of the next local election. Find your local ballot, research the people and policies that are up for a vote, and encourage your friends and family to do the same.